Hey, Daisy here. Welcome to part one of this fashion doll using a Monster High doll hair rerouting tutorial. Draculaura is my beautiful model here. You're going to obviously need your doll. And I'm also using a hairdryer, some scissors, some needle nose pliers, so the ones with the long pointy end on them. Tweezers are always good. And I've also got this little scraper. It's to scrape like the inside of her head. She's going to have lots of glue and icky stuff in there. So you need something that's going to be sort of narrow enough to fit into the hole in her head there. But you want something that's going to be quite smooth. You don't want to be stabbing through her head with something pointy like a knife or anything like that. So this is just a little clay reworking tool with a curve and curve on that end. So anything like that is good. I've also got some gloves. Yeah, so that's about it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is cut all of her hair off. You can keep the hair if you want to reuse it. You might be able to use it for another doll. Or if the hair is pretty gross, which often they are, you can just chuck it out. So I'm just going to take my scissors, and I'm going to actually use my little embroidery scissors here because I want to get as close to the scalp as possible. It just makes things easier later on, but you want to get as much of her hair off now as you possibly can. So let's see how we go. Okay, so here we go. I've cut all of Draculaura's hair off. As you can see, I left it in the ponytail, and that just helps because it can be really messy, and I do actually want to reuse this hair for another project. So there we go. I'm just going to trim off these last few little long bits. It will just make my life a lot easier in a few minutes when I am taking all of the plugs out. But I got pretty close the first time, so she's almost ready to go. Okay, so now the next thing that we have to do is take her head off her body. Now this is probably the trickiest part of the whole operation. You're going to want to put your gloves on. Because you are going to be handling her head when she is quite hot. So I'm going to put my gloves on, and I'm going to take my hairdryer and just point the hairdryer at the back of her neck here, and I'm sort of going to move her around like so. So here I am, and I just want to point it at her head and not at her neck. We only want the vinyl of the head to get soft, but you can quite easily melt the plastic body. And there's a little pin in there connecting her headstock to her body, and it's easy to sort of melt that. And when you pull the head off, her little prongs will be attached to her head rather than the body, but you want to keep the prongs attached to the body. So you'll see what I mean in a second. I'm just going to heat her head up and then really gently pull her head from her body, like work it off like this. And if it doesn't come easily the first time, then I'm going to reheat and try again. It is a delicate process, and you do want to do it slowly and carefully. So let's see how we go. Okay, so I've just had the heat blowing on her head there for about 45 seconds or so. And now I'm just really gently pulling her head away from her body. And it's not coming easily, so I'm going to heat her up again and have another go. You can see I've sort of pulled it off a little bit. It's a little bit loose now, but I'm going to heat her up again and try again. Okay, so really gently again, just pulling, and you can see there that her head has popped halfway off and up all the way off. And there you go. This, her head is now off her body. As you can see here, there are two little prongs on either side of this plastic attacher, and that's what's keeping your doll's head on. If you just were to pull it straight off, either these bits here are going to break, or as I mentioned before, down inside, I don't know if you can see there, but inside of her neck there's a little plastic pin, and there's a loop on the bottom of this, and it's just sticking through the bottom of there. So you really don't want this to come off the body, because then you have broken your doll and you're going to have to do a little bit of surgery. So anyway, here we go. We've got our doll with her head off, and the next thing we need to do is heat her up a little bit more, only this time I'm going to do it in a cup of hot or boiling water. On the inside of her hair, she's got a lot of really icky glue, and so we need to melt that so that we can use our scraping tool to get rid of it. So I'll just get her in the water. Okay, so I've got her in the cup of the hot boiling water now. And we're just going to leave her for about 30 seconds again. I'm sort of keeping her under the water with a chopstick here. But just remember to wear your gloves and be really careful when you're handling your doll straight out of the water, because she is going to be hot. So you probably want to put down a little bit of paper towel and carefully take her out of the water. Make sure all the water has dripped down in there. Okay, now so this is where we're going to take our little scraping tool, and I'm going to put it up inside her head there, and now all I'm going to do is scrape away on the inside of her scalp so that these little hair plugs pop back inside her scalp, so that I can just take some pliers in a minute and fish them all out from inside. So it's a little bit hard on the black background, but I can just show you when you scrape the hair away from the inside, these little hair plugs are going to just sort of shoot back into her scalp. And if they're being difficult, which these ones seem like they are, you're just going to pop her straight back into the water for another 30 seconds or so, and heat up that glue again, because once it cools down, it does harden again. So you can see there, that I've just scraped away, and the plugs have, you can see, have gone to the inside of her scalp. So I'm just going to pop her back into the water there and have another go in a minute. Okay, so I've scraped away all on the inside of her head, but I just really quickly wanted to mention, I mentioned before, head splits. No matter how careful you are, sometimes your doll can come from the factory a little bit sub-quality, and I was being super careful when I was scraping away, but I still managed, well, her head was kind of already split, and you can see in the top there, so that's really what you don't want, and be especially careful if the doll that you're using has a fringe, because the hair there will be much thicker, and therefore the holes going into her scalp will also be much thicker, and there'll be more risk of ripping it. So now, once you've scraped away all on the inside, all you're going to do is take your needle nose pliers and start pulling. Her head is going to be absolutely full of this stuff. It's pretty much just hair and glue, and it's gross. It's really sticky, and there's a lot of it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish unloading this. Okay, so here we have our Dracula head, and I have scooped all of the gross hair and glue from the inside of her scalp, and I mean gross. I mean, ugh, why am I touching that? This is why you want to put a bit of paper towel down, well, A, so you don't get water all over your workspace, and B, so you can just wrap it all up and throw it away. So the last thing that I really need to do here is to take some acetone. As you can see, she's got some black paint on her scalp, so I just need to take a little bit of acetone on my cotton ball and give it a good wipe. You're going to need a couple of cotton balls for this. It's pretty much exactly the same process as in my tutorial on prepping your doll for painting. So if you wanted to check that out, but really all you're doing here is taking some pure acetone on a cotton ball and wiping the paint off her head. So once I've got all that paint off, I can see that I've got a couple of stray plugs here and there that I haven't gotten rid of. So I'm just going to go and take my tweezers and rip those last few little things out. As soon as you have put the acetone on her, you want to get her straight into water. So I'm just going to drop her in here for the second, but you do want to wash her in hot soapy water to make sure that all that acetone is off her scalp. And make sure you wash it from the inside as well if you have used acetone on her, just to make sure that it's not in any of the little holes on her scalp. Now I'm actually going to be rerouting this doll with pink hair, so I don't need to paint her scalp, but if you were going to use a different colour than the vinyl on your doll, say blue or anything, all you need to do is grab some acrylic paint and paint her scalp the same colour as the hair that you're going to be using, and that's it. So please check out part 2. Sorry if this was a little bit long and rambling, but yeah, hopefully you get the point.